Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, Blue Marble Riders. I'm out today on a lovely May Day, and I was originally going to do what's your most favorite motorcycling era, and that was started by Gorilla Biker as a challenge by him, and also Hippodromes. But I realized very quickly that if I started that, I would never get off my first bike, my actual first bike. So I decided that I will do that one. But today is all about what was your first bike? Why? What were the circumstances you got involved with that bike? What did it teach you? And what did you have to unlearn? It gives you a bit of a hint about where I'm going with this one. I live next door to someone called Richard Preston. Not particularly famous, but to me he was an absolute god because he worked for McLaren. Yeah, we lived not far from the McLaren factory. It was just as it was moving into the new place. This is the early 80s. And I used to spend lots of time in Richard Preston's garage. His dad worked for Lucas Electric, otherwise known as the Prince of Darkness. And so they had a real thing for cars and bikes. And in their garage, they had one old Lamborghini Miura that they had picked up for a song. It had been in some sort of accident. And Richard's speciality was body work. So on his spare time, after work, before work, on weekends, he'd be working on this Lamborghini Miura, and I would go round. I wasn't interested in the Lamborghini Miura, just goes to show what poor taste 16-year-olds have. I was interested in his motorcycle. It was up for sale. He'd already got a new one, which was actually going to become my second bike, but maybe on another one I'll talk about that. But his first bike was there, and there it was in that beautiful candy-toned metallic sparkly blue of Suzuki. It was a Suzuki GT 125 two-stroke twin, and I was in love. And as any 16-year-old semi-pubescent adolescent will probably tell you, they don't really know much, but I thought this was the dog's testicles. And I was absolutely in love with it. I would go around and watch Richard working on the Lamborghini, and I had no eyes for that. It was full of Bondo anyway, guys. I was just drooling over this bike, and sure enough, 150 pounds, it was a bargain. I asked my parents. My mum was not amused at all. I mean, what parent is amused when you tell them you want to get a motorcycle? And my dad was very quiet because, of course, like many fathers, he'd had a motorcycle and didn't have a leg to stand on, as he had told me all about his wonderful coming-of-age experiences on his BSA Gold Star 500. So, with a little glint in my eye and a sort of a downward cast in his, I took possession of this wonderful, wonderful Suzuki GT 125 twin. And it wasn't long before I was riding it. However, I wasn't actually old enough to be riding it, and so the first few rides on it, after spending about 2 weeks waiting for my parents to go out so I could take this opportunity, I would sit there buffing it, cleaning it, sniffing it, smelling it, licking it at times, you know, doing all I could. And eventually they went out, and I started this thing up and rode up and down the street. Sans helmet. No helmet. I don't know what you call it, but literally the street I was riding on only had a window to the oncoming street. It was a sort of a 20-foot wide hole that you could see anyone on our street from. And the policeman happened to see me riding up and down the road without a helmet, and it turns out without anything else, like a license either, without a learner plate, without anything. He gave me a jolly good talking to and allowed me to wheel it back into my garage when I showed him where I lived, and told me that if he saw it again and he would be looking, he would come round and have a chat with my parents. Well, I blew that experience off to supremely bad luck, and, you know, I didn't really believe the cop anyway. Who does, right? It was all just mouth and trousers, right? Because I knew everything. I was 16. I mean, obviously we know that because I was in love with a Suzuki GT 125 twin over a Lamborghini Miura. So, next experience on this bike is I do get my learners. I do get a red helmet, albeit polycarb red. Says don't put any stickers on it. The first thing I do, and the second wise choice I make, is to put a Suzuki sticker right round the chin bar here. And I do that, and there I am with a red helmet, blue bike, and I think I am king you know what. And I'm off to sixth form college. I've just turned 17, I'm off to sixth form college, off I go. And I ride in, and there's a parking lot full of motorcycles. It's just for motorcycles, and I'm just in love. I park my bike, proud as punch, my blue sparkly Suzuki, and you know, I've got my leather jacket on, my red helmet. I'm cock of the walk with several other individuals, or many other individuals, and off I go. Well, pretty soon, as you get a bunch of boys together, one thing turns to another, and you start BSing about how fast your bike is compared to everybody else's. So don't we just do that? And in the end, before you know it, there's an unofficial race home to Purford, which is near where I lived, and it went from sixth form college in Woking to Purford, and it went along the old Woking road as fast as you could go. And the winner got absolutely nothing but bragging rights the next day. So sure as you know what, it was basically who got out of class first, got on their bike, slapped their helmet on, and went like the clappers. So I got out of class first one day, got my helmet on, and I thought I was just awesome. I saw a guy called Colin behind me on his DT175. He was getting that thing warmed up, but I'd be damned if I was going to warm mine up. I just popped the choke because, wow, this thing flew with a bit of choke and screamed out of the parking lot. Screamed down the road, turned left onto the old Woking road, screamed along old Woking road, and one of the things we all did was there was a mini roundabout there, and if traffic was conducive, as in light and no one coming, you would try to get air off it by just driving straight over the top of it. It literally was just a little cement mound. It was perfect. Off I went, got a bit of air, wonderful. I knew how to use the clutch, I knew how to use the throttle, but did I know how to use the mirrors? No. The blue sirens were the first thing that I saw when I did actually look in the mirrors, and had to be pulled over by policemen, two policemen in a Ford Escort Panda car. Pulled me over, and the banter between them now is hilarious, but at the time I was absolutely wetting myself. I knew entirely and absolutely what I had done, and there was no getting out of it. Meanwhile, Colin on his DT175 gives me a little wave and a snicker and carries on past. He's going to win the race that day, while these two go to town on me about the fact that, one, my L plate has had rocks blasting through it and is now just 2 strips of white down below my license plate, so that's one ticket. The next ticket is I can't provide them with my MOT because I don't have it on me. Only I do, folks, but I know it's expired. Naughty boy. I'm given 24 hours to get to the cop shop and furnish them with my MOT. That's the second problem. And the third is speeding, obnoxious riding, whatever they called it. They had been waiting right outside the sixth form college parking lot for just such a hooligan clot as myself to blast off and chase. So my next conundrum was to get the bike down to the local motorcycle dealer on Goldsworth Road and get it MOT'd. I got there and begged and pleaded with them, just please get this through the MOT. I've been busted by the cops, and bless their furry hearts, they actually did it for me. I don't think they even looked at the bike, because there is no stinking way, and I hope you're not still in business actually, because I could have died on that thing, and we'll more about that later. There's no stinking way this thing should have passed an MOT, but it did. Thank you guys. I got my little certificate, went into the police station, and the duty officer called the very cops that had pulled me over, and they came up and they gave me the grilling. "You ever do that again, I'll have your balls," was the exact words that were imparted to me. Walked out of there with a little click in my heels, felt like king shit again, hadn't learned my lesson, and next day took off out of school very carefully. There were the policemen, didn't follow me. Went off very carefully around the roundabout, didn't go over the top of it, went round it, but by the time I turned the sharp left onto the long straightway, I knew there were two lovely things waiting for me, and they were, one, in this order, a humpback bridge, and two, a sharp left-hand turn. And if you're in England, you're riding on that side, so it really is sharp, and it's a climbing left-hand turn. And the suspension or the handling on this Suzuki was, there was a lot to be desired. I think there was probably no oil left in the forks. It was using some very wooden tires called, I think they were Dunlop Rain Cheaters, and they were skittish, to put it mildly. So the only way to have a lot of fun on this bike was to go uphill. and crank her over, and the force of the gravity pushing it into the road sort of made you feel a bit more secure on it. And I loved this corner. So nevertheless, I wound this bike up. Unfortunately, there was a car in front of me, and he was not doing the speed I needed to get air, so I decided I was going to pull out and pass him. I got it into what little minuscule power band this thing had. I shouldn't put it down, actually. At the time it was exhilarating, and between 6,000 and 10,000 I think it was. Had nothing under that, and off I went. Dropped a couple of gears, went past him. Double, unfortunately. Coming the other way was a Ford Transit van, and while I don't think our mirrors contacted, I think there was literally a piece of wind, a piece of air, just a millimeter's breadth between the tip of my mirror and the tip of his, and that gave me the fright of my life. I got sucked all over the place by that Ford Transit van. My bars moved. I barely maintained control of the bike, and by the time I had passed the vehicle in front, the third nasty thing to come up was the fact that following close behind this transit van was a cop on a BMW. I think it was an R75, white with its yellow luminous stripes and its blue writing. Never forget it. Siren went on, and bingola, the guy pulls me over, and he's just furious with me. He's not furious because I've broken the law. He's furious because I could have killed myself. Absolutely could have killed myself, and he was dead right. And he gave me a talking to like I hadn't got. Now, it was a polite talking to, but it was a dressing down nevertheless, and he made me realize at that time how stupid I had been. Unfortunately, it didn't really last very long. He gave me a ticking off, but he didn't give me a ticket, which, you know, any normal person would have said, and I was an adolescent, so I don't class myself as a normal person back then, would have said, wow, I got away with one there. Let's take that and learn from it. No, not a chance. I didn't take that and learn from it at all. What I did was the next day, same route home, and long straight away, went over the bridge, lovely leap, got into the left turn, beautiful carved a left turn, and was just feeling great. Getting all the way home, talk about slow learner and arrogant. As I turned left, what could I see but this old geezer leaning on his walking stick with a sort of wry smile on his face, and his head was looking at me, then disengaging and looking at something up the road, then back to me, back to this thing up the road. And what was happening, of course, was the gap was getting a lot smaller and smaller, as his head was doing smaller and smaller arcs between me and this obviously static object I was approaching. Still couldn't see it because it was a gentle curve in the road. As I break out of this curve, there's a BMW R75 parked on the side of the road with a policeman in his luminous vest pointing what looked like a hairdryer at me. And of course I'm encouraged to pull over. I pull over, and it is the same guy. He's got red hair and a red beard, young, about 24, 25, and he can't believe it. He's rolling his eyes and shaking his head, and he says, basically, words fail me. You were doing almost twice the speed limit. I really don't think taking your license away is going to be the solution to this problem. I really think taking your bike away is going to be the solution. Well, at that point I'm mortified, but there's worse to come. He has decided that the way to get my bike taken away, the quickest way, is probably to visit my parents with the chief constable. Oh my God, I could feel the bile rising. The panic was worse than after the Ford Transit van incident. This is all in 1 week, remember, folks. This is all in 1 week. I've barely been riding this bike, and I've managed to almost kill myself or broken the law more times than you can count. So the long and the short of it is, he says he's going to come round and he's going to bring the chief constable, and he'll be there that evening. This time I'm a little worried. He seems very, very sure that this is going to happen. He seems very motivated, and he seems very concerned. He was super nice, if you can call it that. Very, very firm, but fair. And he was trying to reason with me in a way that it takes a special cop to do for a kid that age. And I was starting to get the message, but I still think I probably would have snuck out and carried on doing stupid things. Anyway, I get home. Do I have the balls or the courage to tell my mum? Not a chance, because she's the one who really didn't want me to get the bike. The worst thing you can do is not tell someone when you've got a problem like that. And I remember stewing from about 4:30, 5 o'clock, no idea when this guy's coming round. At 7:30, just before, and I think it's just before Coronation Street, my mum's favourite programme was going to start. She's in her dressing gown and rollers. I still haven't told her. There's a knock at the door. I open it, and there, standing there, is my red-headed youngish police constable and an older guy, all decked out in their full uniforms, and they asked me very politely if they could come in and speak to my mother. At that point, I go, "Mum, we've got some visitors." They walk into the living room. You know, do I need to paint it any further what this looks like? My mum has got no idea why these two policemen are walking in to her living room while she is in her dressing gown and rollers about to watch Coronation Street, is in absolute sort of hysterical panic mode. They calm her down, talk to her for a good 45 minutes, bring me in on the conversation, and we all agree, you know, the universal we all agree that my motorcycle is going to disappear. It's going to disappear for another 6 months. 6 months without the motorcycle, and once that's back, then perhaps I can have another go. And that's exactly what happened to that bike. In hindsight, that cop probably saved my life. I've got nothing but respect for that cop. At the time, I felt really, really pissed off, cheesed off, angry. But I only had one person to blame, and deep down, even with the adolescent brain, I knew who that person was. You know, that's something I've never forgotten. I didn't get chewed out, hauled into the police station. I didn't get a million points on my license, told I would never ride for 5 years or anything. I didn't go to court, none of that stuff. I got something worse. I got a personal connection with a cop, and someone who started to mean something to me and then took my bike away. My mum and my parents were on side with the cop. That's an amazingly powerful message. I got that message. If I hadn't got that message, I have the horrible feeling that I'd have ended up a smudge on the road. And you know, I suppose it shows ambition to die on a motorcycle on a 125, but that's all it shows. You know, if you're going to go on a motorcycle, perhaps a Bruff Superior, and having done something with your life first of all, but a 125, age 17, nah, there's nothing to write home about, is it? It's not something that people are going to sit and think about and muse about, romanticize, and look retrospectively at and say, wow, you know, what a life. Wow, what a way to go, you know. No, probably several years later, I was riding my second bike, or was it my third? I can't remember. I do remember still having the same helmet with a red sticker on, and I would often see this cop, sometimes on duty, sometimes off duty. He recognized my helmet with the great big Suzuki sticker on it, and he would always wave, thumbs up. Super nice guy. What a great, great cop. And that's why I'm still here riding today. I'm almost certain I wouldn't be if it hadn't been for the guidance and connection that I got, the follow-up from that cop. He didn't need to do it. He could have written me a ticket, gone home, and never thought any more about it. Waited till I hit the, you know, a wall or someone's car or something else. And that was it. No skin off his nose, but he didn't. What a great guy. Well, thanks for listening, folks. Thanks for your time, as always. Don't forget to click like and subscribe. Cheerio, and I shall see you next time. BlueMarbleRider, out.
Once again, thanks for watching, everyone. If this is the first time you've watched, please consider subscribing. I do product reviews, motorcycle reviews, off-road and on-road vlogs, as well as tours. Don't forget to follow me on social media, that's Instagram, Facebook and Twitter, and to like, and especially, I'm begging you here folks, subscribe. This is the BlueMarbleRider, out.